FY Brecon with Tim Farron and Kirsty Williams. Tim Farron, leader of the Lib Dems, Kirsty Williams, AM. Chris Davis has put his cards on the table. Chris Davis, MP for Brecon and Radnorshire, by saying that he wants an exit from the EU. What's your stance on this?
Shall I go first? I'll go first in that case. Well, I think it's a really peculiar stance to take for a farming constituency, and I find it most odd. I mean, I'm somebody who's well known for my criticisms of David Cameron, but on this particular issue, whether we stay in the European Union or not, when you realise that because of direct payments in the UK as a whole, but in particular in Wales, we would see possibly the end of livestock and dairy farming. A massive threat if we were to leave the European Union. That's not to mean that everything in it is great. There's loads wrong with Europe that we need to reform, but to leave and lose access to the biggest market in the world, which would damage farmers, but would damage the tourism industry and indeed business across the country, would be very foolish indeed.
And how about the arts?
Well, I think you find that our ability to kind of have free movement of people who come here on holiday, the people who are able to trade overseas, but absolutely stretches to arts and culture. That ability for us to have the sort of meeting of different cultures in different parts of Europe, and the reality that people can come here. We know the tourism industry is worth something like $5 billion a year to Wales's economy, and obviously culture is about a lot more than tourism, but it's part of that. To put that at risk would be hugely damaging. I think the danger is that people get very ideological at times like this, and for us it's right that we look at what's in the interest of people in Brecon, what's good for them, what's the right choice for them, rather than fixating on an ideology. And what's good for people in Brecon is to make sure that we continue to trade with our nearest neighbours, that we make sure we carry on getting those payments for our farmers and giving the export markets for those farmers, and making sure that we have that kind of cultural interaction that's made Europe a better place, let's be honest, a safer and more peaceful place these last few decades.
Kirsty, are you in agreement?
Absolutely, and I'm aware of local arts groups in Brecon and Radnorshire that have taken advantage of cultural funding available from the European Union, that have allowed them to take young people from this constituency to different parts of Europe to study many cultural activities, whether that be theatrical arts or in the case of glass making, and we've been able to have that cultural exchange between people that has been hugely beneficial. My great-grandfather was in Mehmet's Wood. His son spent most of the Second World War in Wolfsburg in a prisoner of war camp. I'm so pleased to be part of a generation whose father and brother have never had to go to war like they did. And whatever is wrong with Europe, and the things that we can do to make the European institutions better, just like we can make Westminster better, we can make the Assembly better, Powys County Council better. It has created a safe and stable continent that has meant that our generation has never had to endure what our forefathers had to endure.
So the Gen said yes to Europe.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because I was in Brussels last Thursday during the renegotiations, and of course David Cameron has one colleague in Europe. Only one other Prime Minister belongs to David Cameron's party. I have 7, so 7 Liberal Prime Ministers, and I got talking to them, and it just, the penny drops really when you're talking to other countries in Europe, that I think I'm right in saying that 11, maybe even 12 of the 28 members of the European Union were behind the Iron Curtain a generation ago. And many of them, let's be really blunt about this, had nuclear weapons on their soil pointed right here. And now we're sat around the table being friends, and that is progress. Europe may not be perfect, but by golly, it's a massive improvement on the alternative.
Tim, Kirsty, thank you very much.
Thank you.
How's Blackburn doing?
Very badly. We got beaten by Derby 1-0, which actually, to be honest, a 1-0 defeat to Derby is